All 4 girls in our dormitory have been reborn, one of them is even pregnant, and the apocalypse is only 5 hours away. In the previous life, we struggled to support each other through the end of the world, only to die at the mouths of zombies. In this life, we are determined to fight to live to be 100 years old. When I woke up, I was lying on my bed in the college dormitory. My 3 roommates, Xuemingming, Zhongjia, and Su Menghan, also sat up slowly after the 4 of us stared at each other blankly for a while. We confirmed that we had been reborn. It was now 10 in the morning, and the apocalypse would arrive in 5 hours. Our first thought was to go home, but we were all from other provinces. Even if we bought tickets right away, we wouldn't make it in time. In our previous lives, we survived the initial disaster by hiding in a private dining room at a restaurant, but due to a shortage of food and water, life became extremely difficult. Later, we set out on a survival journey just to stay alive. After 6 months of hiding and living in constant fear, we still ended up getting bitten to death. Let's take shelter locally and stock up on supplies. We'll hold out as long as we can, I suggested. Xuemingming nodded. I agree, but our door is as thin as paper. It won't stop the zombies at all. Plus, we don't have much money. How are we supposed to buy supplies, even if we had the money? Our dorm is so small, where would we put everything? How about we rent a place? Now, Zhongjia also voiced her concern. There are only 5 hours left. Renting a place and then buying supplies would definitely take too much time. I looked around the dorm and knocked on the wall. The room next door is the activity room. We can store the supplies there first. This wall isn't load-bearing. We can cut an opening in it later to get through. As for safety, we'll go to the building materials market to buy lumber and tools. Then reinforce the doors and windows ourselves. We had all survived the apocalypse before, and we knew this was the fastest and most feasible solution at hand, but this process would definitely draw attention, and with time running short, the only option was to tackle each problem as it came. During our discussion, Su Menghan remained silent, because she was pregnant. In her previous life, her boyfriend was about to go abroad for an exchange program, and in the heat of their farewell, they couldn't help themselves, resulting in an unexpected pregnancy. A month into the apocalypse, she began showing signs of pregnancy. This child, much like the apocalypse itself, arrived without warning, leaving every one of us at a loss. Sorry, I can't keep dragging you both down. Thank you for looking after me in the past life. Su Menghan's tone was firm as she transferred all her money to us. Take this money and buy what you need. Live well. If my soul endures after death, I will surely find a way to repay your kindness. I grabbed her arm. We live together or not at all. We promised we'd be the baby's aunts. Exactly. We survived the last life even when it was so hard. Now that we know what's coming ahead of time, things will definitely get better. Menghan, don't be afraid. Xuemingming and Zhongjia also tried to reassure her. Su Menghan's emotions were unstable. We understood her worries and fears, but we couldn't afford to waste time dwelling on the future. The first thing we need to do is pool our money together, take out whatever we've saved, plus whatever our parents gave us, and also max out credit cards and borrow from lending platforms however we can. It's not like we'll have to pay it back anyway. In half an hour, we managed to scrape together 83,000 yuan. We immediately split up. Xuemingming went to the building materials market to buy supplies, tools, and some handy weapons, while Zhongjia and I took care of the daily necessities. I contacted the water delivery guy and asked for 50 barrels of purified water. He thought I was joking, so I sent him half the payment up front, and he immediately arranged the delivery with a beaming smile. At the same time, Zhongjia was also ordering various non-perishable foods online. These items would be delivered by a courier, which would lighten our load quite a bit. Menghan, you stay in the dorm to receive the supplies and don't leave. Make sure all our laptops and power banks are fully charged. Our backup depends on you. This was our way of getting Su Menghan to stay behind. Su Menghan finally nodded. Don't worry about me. Go ahead, I'll get it done. There is a large supermarket right outside the school, so Zhongjia and I dragged our suitcases over. It was exam week, and the students were either taking tests or studying in the library. There weren't many people in the dorm buildings or on campus, only some sheets and duvet covers fluttering on the clotheslines, bright and colorful. They mirrored the mood of the students about to go on break. On the way, we Called our parents to tell them an emergency was about to happen and that they should go home right away to stock up on supplies, but our parents didn't believe us. After all, society was peaceful and people were getting along. How could there be an emergency? We couldn't explain, so we could only urge them repeatedly. If they sensed danger around 3 in the afternoon, they must not run around. Instead, they should find a place to hide immediately. After briefing our parents, we arrived at the supermarket. We first went to the section for rice, flour, oil, and vacuum-packed foods, grabbing as much as we could carry. The second time, we headed to the fuel section, taking all the solid and canned fuel we could find, filling 4 suitcases and dragging them back. When we got back to the dorm, the water delivery person had already arrived and was carrying barrels of water up to the 4th floor activity room. The dorm matron looked at all the water with some confusion, but thankfully didn't ask any further questions. On our third trip to the supermarket, we bought hygiene-related items such as toothpaste, toothbrushes, sanitary pads, underwear, garbage bags, a water filter pitcher, disinfectant, and masks. It was already 11:30 a.m. By the time we finished shopping, Ming had also returned from the building materials market, so we moved the supplies and tools into the dormitory together. "What are you buying all these things for?" the dorm aunt finally couldn't help but ask. "We have a model-making project for our architecture class." I made up an excuse. The aunt looked at us and said, "It's fine to build models, but you can't use high-power electrical appliances, or I'll confiscate them." We nodded repeatedly while hiding the toolbox containing the electric drill behind our backs. The food we ordered online kept arriving, which also drew the attention of some classmates. They crowded around our door to watch. "Su Xiang, what are you doing instead of reviewing?" a classmate asked me. I looked at their youthful, radiant faces, thinking that soon they would be infected and turned into zombies. A pang of sorrow struck my heart, so I said ambiguously, "I'm worried something urgent might happen. You should buy some supplies and stock up. Don't go wandering around later. You guys are so weird. Why would there be an emergency out of nowhere? We have an exam tomorrow morning, and I don't want to fail." With that, they left. "Forget it. No one's going to believe something like this. Let's go." Zhong Jia let out a helpless sigh. Even though we knew what was going to happen, we had no ability to change any of it. At 12 o'clock, we went to the supermarket with a checklist of items we were missing and restocked everything we needed. As we came out of the supermarket, I noticed the motorcycle shop next to it, so I went in and bought 4 helmets and 4 sets of durable clothing and gloves. Later, when food and water run out, we will definitely have to go outside to search for supplies, and these will help reduce the risk of being bitten and infected. At 1:30, there was still 1 hour left before the apocalypse began. Finally, we went to a baby supply store and a pharmacy. At the maternity and baby store, we followed the advice of moms online and bought formula, baby clothes and blankets, diapers, bottles, a hospital bag, and other essentials. We even downloaded instructional videos on childbirth. Even though we didn't know whether that little life would ultimately be lucky enough to arrive, we wanted to be fully prepared for every possibility. Before leaving, we saw potties for toddlers and picked up 2 of those as well. With a trash bag placed inside, they would solve our bathroom needs later on. Finally, we went to the pharmacy. If we hadn't been rescued within 9 months, the baby would definitely be delivered by us. So in addition to all kinds of supplements and medicines, we also bought scissors, gauze, alcohol, tourniquets, and so on. Whether they might come in handy or not, we bought them until we had spent every last cent. At 2:40, we took a car back to the dormitory building. Most of the students had gone to take their exams, so the dormitory was very quiet. We climbed the stairs carrying large bags and small bundles. Suddenly, my hand felt lighter. Turning around, I saw a passing girl helping me lift the load. "Thanks, I can carry it," I declined warily and instinctively. The girl gave a bright smile. "No problem, it's just lending a hand." Beside her, another girl with short hair was helping Zhong Jia carry a can of milk powder. "Why are you still drinking baby formula? It's not suitable for us. You can buy special student milk powder," the short-haired girl said with a laugh. "Okay, next time we'll switch," I replied. They helped us carry our things to the stairwell and went upstairs. I watched them head up to the 6th floor, where the landscape architecture department's dormitory was. After putting everything away, we closed the door to the common room. and walked back to our dorm in silence. At the age of 20, we awaited the arrival of doomsday. At 3 o'clock, clouds piled up in the sky, blocking out the sunlight. A scream tore through the campus air, followed by a second, then a third. The infected were indiscriminately biting those around them, and those who were bitten would soon mutate into mindless ghouls as well. Su Menghan clutched her lower abdomen tightly and curled up on the bed, while the rest of us called home, urging our parents to stay hidden and not to run around under any circumstances. I then opened the toolbox, took out the power drill, and plugged it in. Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia tacitly picked up the wooden boards. The three of us worked together to board up the windows and doors. Just as we were halfway through boarding up the window, a bloody hand appeared on it. It was Lu Ying, a classmate from the next dorm. She had been bitten. Something bad has happened out there. I don't have my keys. Please let me in and let me hide here for a while, she said, looking at us in terror. Black veins had already appeared on her neck, spreading toward her brain. In at most 5 minutes, her consciousness would completely vanish and she would become a zombie. Lu Ying, why don't you give your parents a call? I said to her. At this moment, the best way to part is to say goodbye. Lu Ying froze for a moment, then looked at her own reflection in the window. When she saw those terrifying lines, she let out a frantic scream. She pounded desperately on our door. Let me in, I beg you. We naturally couldn't open the door, so we had no choice but to endure the feeling of helplessness and keep the doors and windows sealed. Lu Ying's voice gradually faded. Through the crack in the door, I saw her struggling to pull out her phone and dial a number, which was answered quickly on the other end. Ying, hide yourself quickly. Something's happened out there. An anxious voice came through the phone. Mom. Lu Ying called out weakly, and then the phone suddenly slipped from her hand to the ground. Her eyes had turned gray and white, devoid of any living sparkle. Ying, Lu Ying's mother was still calling out from the other side, but Lu Ying could no longer hear her. She staggered, scratching at our door with her hands, drawn by the breath of the living. She wanted to get in. We had no time to grieve for her and could only continue quickly nailing the door shut. The news reported on the situation. The whole world was suffering disasters today, and the government reminded everyone to take shelter nearby and wait for rescue. We managed to get in touch with our parents again. Thankfully, they were still alive. My mom was crying bitterly, afraid that we mother and daughter might never see each other again in this lifetime. My dad, however, was much calmer. He had served in the military. Over the phone, he gave me instructions on how to reinforce the house and take cover, and reminded us that we must stay united and not turn against each other at a time like this. Menghan, try contacting Cheng Yan right now. I reminded Su Menghan. Su Menghan is an orphan. The Cheng family sponsored her living and education expenses. She and Cheng Yan grew up together as childhood sweethearts. In the previous life, all of us managed to reconnect with our families, but she and Cheng Yan were the only ones who couldn't. All right. Su Menghan snapped back to reality and called Cheng Yan. This time, the call went through. After learning that Su Menghan was pregnant, Cheng Yan urgently said, wait for me to come back so we can get married. But he was on the other side of the ocean, separated from Su Menghan by thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Coming back was easier said than done. Don't come back, stay hidden over there, and wait until the future. Until things are stable in the future before you return, Su Mengyao urged, though none of us knew when that future would come. After the call, we continued with our plan, using the noise outside as cover to start breaking through the wall. Half an hour later, we had made a hole just big enough for a person to squeeze through, then nailed the activity room door shut with wooden planks. There are no windows on the corridor side of the activity room, so unless someone flies up to the 4th floor from the back, no one will discover that supplies are stored here. We didn't board up the balcony side with wooden planks, otherwise it would be a dead giveaway, but since this is the 4th floor and zombies can't fly, the only thing we need to guard against is people. At 7 in the evening, the campus gradually grew quiet. The vast majority of people had been infected, wandering around unaware. Looking outside, some dormitories still had their lights on. From time to time, sounds of crying and cursing could be heard. There seemed to be people in our building as well, but I can't determine their exact location. We didn't turn on the lights. We quietly organized the supplies with the curtains drawn. Now the dorm is filled with things We keep the frequently used items close by and quietly move the rest into the activity room. At night while sleeping, the three of us take turns keeping watch. Except for Su Menghan, each of us keeps a hammer and a knife within reach, ready to respond to any emergency. When I woke up the next day, there was already a stench of decay in the air. It was summer, and the bodies would rot quickly. Some people were vomiting, but the four of us had grown used to the smell. This odor would linger until winter arrived. We continued to stay in touch with our families. Fortunately, all of our loved ones were still alive, and we encouraged each other to live on. After a simple breakfast, we took showers and tidied up, then filled all the basins, buckets, and other containers with water. A message came through in the class group chat. The counselor was counting those still alive. Only 4 people had spoken in the group, all of them male. The rest of us remained silent. In this disaster, only 8 of the 42 students in our architecture class 1 remained. Someone lit a candle emoji in the group chat, and the other 3 classmates followed suit. The counselor sent a message in the group: lock your doors and windows, stay quiet, fill up your water and charge your devices, and wait for rescue. But we knew that rescue would be hard to come by, at least for 6 months. On the 3rd day of the apocalypse, the electricity and water were cut off. As soon as we opened our eyes, we called home, but this time, I couldn't reach my parents. Maybe there was no signal on their end, or maybe, I didn't dare to think further, and prayed it was the former. Su Menghan was in the same boat. She also lost contact with Cheng Yen the night before. None of us said much. We prepared for the worst, but kept living with hope. We turned off all the computers and chargers, hoping that the battery would last for 9 months, so that the future us could watch the video to help Su Menghan with the delivery. The sound of zombies scratching at the door came from outside. I looked through the crack and saw over a dozen former classmates standing in the hallway, wandering in a broken, dismembered state. Is anyone still alive? Is there anyone still alive? 401, 402, 403. Someone from room 405 shouted, their voice a bit hysterical, sounding on the verge of a mental breakdown. After hearing the noise, all the zombies gathered in that direction. Staying quiet was the most effective way to protect ourselves, but I could also understand her. She was likely the only one left in her dorm room. Soon her voice stopped, probably because she realized that shouting would attract the zombies. On the 4th day of the apocalypse, the cell phone signal was completely gone. Around noon, we suddenly heard the sound of a car. Looking out the window, we saw a small truck parked downstairs. A sturdy father and son, along with a middle-aged woman, climbed into the truck bed and shouted at the top of their lungs, "Chen Chen, where are you?" This shout immediately attracted the surrounding zombies, but because of the height of the train car, the zombies couldn't harm them. Mom, Dad, Big Brother. The girl from room 405 opened the window and wept with joy. It turned out her family had come to rescue her. The father and son spread out a quilt. "Chen Chen, jump down, we'll catch you." The girl did not hesitate and leaped down. Her father and brother caught her firmly, and then the family held each other tightly in an embrace. We watched with envy, thinking how secure it must feel to have family by your side at a time like this. We missed our parents too. Even if we were to die, dying together would still be a kind of happiness. "Sir, please save me, take me with you," others from the dormitory called out, pleading for help. The man looked at them helplessly. By now, the zombies had already become too many. If they didn't leave soon, they wouldn't be able to escape at all. The car disappeared from our sight, but the noise had drawn a number of zombies toward us. By the afternoon, gunfire erupted all over the city. The rescue team had arrived, and hope was rekindled among the people. Fighter jets circled overhead, unleashing wave after wave of bullets. Large numbers of zombies fell, but soon they rose again. Gradually, the gunfire died down, and the jets left. If conventional weapons couldn't hit the zombies in the head, they only wasted ammunition. Many people started crying again. If even the rescue team couldn't do anything, what could ordinary people possibly do? On the 5th day of the apocalypse, we encountered our first dangerous situation. Zhong Jia's period came early. She wrapped herself in a blanket to keep her scent from leaking out, sweating heavily in the summer heat. We sealed the cracks around the doors and windows with tape, and sprayed mugwort-scented mosquito repellent in the room to mask the smell of blood as much as possible. This is experience we gained in the previous life, but it only works in small spaces. Zhong Jia came out from under the covers, I stood by the door listening to the sounds outside. The zombies in the hallway hadn't gone into a blood riot, and no zombies had gathered beneath the balcony. We both breathed a sigh of relief. Hopefully, when Su Menghan gives birth in the future, we can also avoid alerting the zombies like this. On the 6th day of the apocalypse, a torrential rain fell. The surviving students stood on the balcony holding buckets and basins to catch rainwater, and some even stripped off their clothes to take a bath. Indiana, the torrential rain. The zombies stood still, letting the rain wash over them. Among these zombies, I saw classmates and my counselor. Just a few days ago, the counselor was still counting the survivors in the group chat, telling us not to go outside. But now she's become a zombie. Why didn't she just stay in her room? There is only one explanation. She was already infected when she sent us that message. I pressed my palms together and prayed to the heavens, praying that every soul would find its place to rest. Stop praying. What happened this time proves there are no gods in this world. If there were, how could they bear to let humans suffer such a disaster? Xue Mingming said indignantly. Zhong Jia shook her head. Not necessarily. Maybe our rebirth is part of a divine plan. That's true. But what can we do? We don't really know what we can do either. The only thing we can do is cherish this opportunity and try our best to survive. Day 10 of the apocalypse. Perhaps realizing that rescue was unlikely to come, the surviving students began to save themselves. After the rain stopped, I saw someone tear their bedsheet into strips, tie them around their body, and climb over the balcony to other dormitories in search of supplies. Some people didn't have the habit of stocking up on snacks, and after 10 days, they were nearing their limit of hunger, leaving them no choice but to take such risks. Some were luckier. Every dormitory they entered had at least some food or drink to be found. With these, the survivors could hold on a bit longer, but others unfortunately ran into zombies. They tried to retreat quickly, yet in the end, they were still a step too slow. I noticed someone staring in our direction. Although they weren't looking directly at our dorm, I had a feeling they were planning something. Could it be that they found the stuff we hid in the activity room? Xue Mingming said worriedly. Probably not. We drew the curtains in the activity room. I bet they'll come over to our side once their supplies run out. I analyzed, but we both thought they wouldn't be able to make it. Although the dormitories are less than 100 meters apart, there are too many zombies. Getting over here is nearly impossible. On the 15th day of the apocalypse, a bag of trash was thrown from upstairs. There were still survivors in our building. I immediately thought of the two girls who helped us carry things on the last day of the old world. Maybe they were still alive. The 5th and 6th floors are for the landscape architecture and civil engineering departments. They probably won't come down, Zhong Jia said. A bit worried, Xue Mingming replied. It's fine, we're all girls. Even if they try to come and take things, there are 4 of us. No need to be afraid. I looked up and listened carefully to the noises above. It was very quiet, and I couldn't tell which dorm room they were in. After that, bags of trash were tossed down every few days, and from this frequency I inferred that there weren't many people above. On the 30th day of the apocalypse, Su Menghan began experiencing morning sickness, accompanied by bleeding gums and cracked skin. This was because we hadn't eaten any fruits or vegetables for a long time. The rest of us could manage, but since she was pregnant, her constitution couldn't compare to ours. Strange, aren't we taking vitamins every day? Why is this still happening? We opened our phones in confusion to check the downloaded medical books, only to realize that vitamins cannot fully replace fruits and vegetables, and that some people might even get poisoned by taking too many. But where on earth could we get fruits and vegetables at a time like this? Just as we were worrying, a noise came from the balcony. We immediately held our breath and stayed completely silent. I picked up a knife and tiptoed over, with Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia following behind me, each holding a weapon. Lifting a corner of the curtain, I saw a girl on the balcony tied to a bedsheet sitting on the railing, looking up and talking to someone above her. I've made it. It doesn't look like there are any zombies here. I remembered her. She was the girl who helped us carry things that day. They were indeed still alive. She landed lightly, holding a fruit knife in her hand, and stepped closer to us one pace at a time. The moment she pushed the door open, I grabbed her, pulled her inside, and pressed the knife against her neck. Don't move. Although she once helped us, she's now holding a knife, so I absolutely cannot let my guard down. Once we subdued the girl, she immediately dropped the knife and raised her hands. Don't kill me. I was just looking for something to eat. I mean no harm, I only had the knife to deal with zombies. I kicked her knife away. In truth, I felt very conflicted. Inside, she had discovered us and already seen our supplies here. If she so much as yelled out, we would become a target. Getting rid of her is the safest course of action, but although I've killed zombies, I've never killed a person. I can't bring myself to do it, and this girl doesn't seem to be lying. Shui Mingming and Zhong Jia felt the same way, both looking at me hesitantly. I remember you. The one who bought a lot of baby formula last time. I'm so glad you're still alive. I thought everyone was dead, the girl said softly. In the end, I loosened my grip on the knife. This girl was terrifyingly saintly. Even as I held the blade against her, she still said, I'm so glad you're alive. We gave her some food and were about to warn her not to come back or else, when she spoke first, I won't take these for free. I'll have my roommate send down some blueberries and lemons. Maybe you can use them. We thought she was lying. How could fruit be kept so long? But then her roommate really did lower more than 20 blueberries and 2 small lemons down in a plastic bag. We grew these ourselves. In a few days, the tomatoes will be ripe, and we'll give you some of those too, the girl said without holding anything back. Why would you grow these? We asked, confused. Blueberries and lemons were something I planted for fun because it was trendy at the time. I don't know how the tomatoes ended up growing out of the pot on their own. Maybe a bird brought them. I've heard about birds carrying seeds, but no matter how they got here, they've really helped us out at this moment. My name is Lin Shi, I'm from the dorm 2 floors above yours. What are your names? The girl seemed to have a serious case of social fearlessness. If it were me, I would have grabbed the food and left immediately. We told her our names, and she even invited us to her dorm to see the fruits they were growing. Lin Qian, keep a low profile, or you won't even know how you die, I warned her. Lin Qian nodded silently. Just as she reached the door, she suddenly turned back and said, but you're good people, aren't you? Otherwise, you could have just strangled me a moment ago. She nimbly climbed back in, leaving the 4 of us staring at each other in bewilderment. This girl must be the reincarnation of the Virgin Mary, Shui Mingming muttered under her breath, then couldn't help but laugh. The corners of our mouths also lifted. After a month of suppressed life, we finally felt a slight sense of relief. We sliced lemons and mixed them with honey in water for Meng Han Su to drink. And finally, her vomiting became less severe. 2 days later, Qian Lin actually brought us 6 tomatoes. They didn't look very pretty, but they tasted pleasantly sweet and sour. We just had a small taste and gave the rest to Meng Han Su. We also gave some food to Qian Lin in return and told them how to avoid attracting zombies during their period. From then on, we gradually began to communicate more. But they never asked why we had hoarded so many supplies. I knew they must have been curious too. Perhaps their silence came from fear, or perhaps from respect. On the 50th day of the apocalypse, living people appeared in our sight. They were 4 tall, sturdy boys carrying buckets. Their bodies were smeared with a dark red paste as they carefully walked among the zombies. Strangely, the zombies did not attack them. How did they do that? Su Menghan asked in surprise. I couldn't clearly see what was on them, so I took out my phone and used the camera to zoom in. Through the camera, I saw that what was smeared on them seemed to be flesh and blood. The thought immediately crossed my mind of an American TV show about zombies that I had watched before, in which someone successfully avoided zombies by covering themselves with zombie flesh and blood to mask their scent. I told Su Menghan and the others about this, and they found it just as unbelievable. We continued watching those few guys as they quickly made their way through the small grove to the artificial lake, filled their buckets with water, and then ran off wildly. Although they succeeded, we didn't dare catch a zombie to experiment on. Otherwise, if we got scratched or bitten by accident, we'd be doomed beyond recovery. But others followed their example, and in order to survive, some started catching zombies too. However, the result was just as we had expected. In the end, they all died by the zombies' mouths. Those 4 guys must have not only been exceptionally bold but also incredibly strong. I think they might have been from the physical education department. The remaining people dared not act rashly, but if they didn't act, they would have no food. Gradually, they began to argue, fight, and tear at each other, until everything fell silent. On the 70th day of the apocalypse, the weather finally began to cool as autumn set in. Su Menghan's belly started to swell slightly. This little life was growing like a strong, determined sprout. Our lives gained a sense of hope. With so many lives lost, this little sprout became a small beacon of hope. But Su Menghan's morning sickness was severe. She had already finished the lemons, and there was nothing left to help relieve her nausea. Her body grew thinner day by day. We took good care of her and often spoke to the baby in her belly, hoping he would understand how hard his mother was having to endure. Miraculously, as if the little one understood, Su Menghan gradually regained her appetite, and her morning sickness became less severe than before. I thought to myself, this little sprout is sure to grow into a considerate child. We've made a plan. After the baby is born, if the rescue team still haven't shown up, we'll try to make our way to the nearby agricultural university. They have farming bases and greenhouses there, and there should still be seeds and fertilizer. We can settle there and start farming. Lin Qian and her roommate Wu Xia occasionally climbed down under cover of darkness. They were also surprised to see Su Menghan pregnant. So you bought the formula because you're having a baby? Lin Qian had an expression that said she finally understood. Can I feel the baby? Su Menghan nodded. Go ahead. With all the fruit you've shared with us, you've had a part in helping this child grow up healthy. She carefully placed her hand on it. The baby is moving. He's kicking me. How is that possible? The baby is only 3 months old and hasn't started quickening yet. It's probably just my stomach acting up. Su Menghan smiled, her complexion much improved, already taking on the look of a mother. She said, when the baby is born, I want to be his godmother. Xue Mingming clicked her tongue twice. We all just want to be aunts, but you want to be the godmother. Dream on. Everyone chuckled softly. Heavy clouds filled the sky, and the moonlight was nowhere to be seen. Though the dark clouds could hide the moon, they could not steal it away. On the 80th day of the apocalypse, the 4 boys appeared again. They didn't come out to fetch water this time, but to look for food. With clubs and knives in their hands, they searched for supplies in the buildings around us. In the previous life, we had seen how brutal survivors could become over a single cookie. When faced with starvation, humanity means nothing. Luckily, they left after finding some supplies and didn't come to our building. But just before leaving, I overheard them saying there were quite a few zombies in our building. A lot of zombies means there are living people. I don't know if they've caught on, but it reminded us to be careful moving forward. We started moving, simulating how we would fight back if someone came to loot our supplies. I recalled the fighting techniques my dad had taught me in the past, and then passed them on to Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia. But at times like this, I still felt sad, not knowing how my parents were doing. On the 112th day of the apocalypse, several planes flew over the school. They were military aircraft, which meant our country was still there. Even though the planes were just passing by, they still gave us hope. The country still stands, the people's military is still here, and home will surely remain. The 175th day of the apocalypse was New Year's Day. This day held great significance for us. On this day in our previous life, we died by the mouths of zombies, just 1 hour before the new year arrived. But now, we are still alive. We kept our eyes open until the arrival of the new year. We made it. The 4 of us hugged each other tightly, none of us able to hold back our tears. Suddenly, Su Menghan let out a soft ouch and gently placed her hand on her abdomen. What's wrong? I asked nervously at the same time as Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia. Su Menghan drew a sharp breath. The little one kicked me. She's a little rascal, Xue Mingming said with a laugh. Little baby, no bullying mommy, Zhong Jia said to Su Menghan's belly. I also reached out and touched it, feeling a small bump. Su Menghan said it was the baby's hand. It was my first time touching a fetus, and the feeling was wonderful. Though I'm not related by blood, a strange sense of responsibility arose in my heart. We had once been panicked and at a loss because of his arrival, afraid he would be a burden, but now, I hope he can be born safely, grow up healthy and secure, and live in a world without zombies. Only love and blessings. We all had a good dream that night. Day 200 of the apocalypse, Lunar New Year. Snow fell from the sky, blanketing the world in white. There were far fewer zombies at the school. No one knew where they'd gone. I looked down the hallway. The zombies had vanished too, leaving only Lu Ying's phone behind. The last conversation she had with her mother still echoes in my ears, and I miss my parents too. 2 red-crowned cranes arrived in the snowy field, dancing gracefully with an ethereal elegance. We had never seen such national treasures before and crowded around the window to watch. 7 or 8 zombies approached them, and we were sweating with anxiety, sensing danger. The red-crowned cranes flapped their wings and flew away, while we remained trapped where we were, unsure when we would ever be free. Suddenly, a steel bar flew over and pierced a zombie's skull. The zombie collapsed on the spot, its dark blood staining the white snow black. The 4 guys appeared again. They walked over with knives, chopped off the zombie's head and tossed it aside, then smeared the blood onto their own bodies. The surrounding zombies, drawn by the scent of the living, closed in. They brutally hacked off the zombies' heads and then dragged the corpses toward our dorm building. They seem to have come to our dorm building, Xue Mingming said nervously. Soon we heard the sound of the main gate below being shut, followed by the noise of rummaging through boxes and cabinets. No one had been to our building before, so there should still be some supplies left. They'll probably stick around for a while. What do we do? They're definitely coming up, and they're so strong. Compared to them, we're just little chicks. I also got a clear look at those 4 people just now. They're nearly 9 meters tall and can chop off a zombie's head with a single swing. In a direct fight, we really stand no chance. I took stock of our supplies. Since we usually share some with Lin Qian and her group, we have 17 buckets of water left, and enough food to last only 3 or 4 months. Let's hide in the activity room first. If they find us and just want our food, we'll share, but if they're out to kill us, we won't back down, I said. Xue Mingming, Zhong Jia, and Su Menghan all agreed. At this point, those are our only 2 options. The 4 boys did not come up immediately. They kept searching downstairs and even lit books to keep warm. We could hear their complaints and curses. They searched floor by floor, and on the 3rd day, they reached our 4th floor. We hid in the activity room, and the hole in the wall was covered with a large poster. With a loud bang, our dormitory door was violently kicked, but it didn't open. This door is pretty sturdy. Damn, can't kick it open in one go, one of them said. You look like you haven't eaten. Step aside, let me do it. Another one chuckled scornfully, then kicked hard. With a crack, the door panel shattered, but because wooden braces had been nailed diagonally from the inside, the door was broken but still wouldn't open. They let out a grunt of surprise, then fell silent, not knowing what they were up to. We could only grip our weapons tightly. About 3 minutes later, they suddenly appeared on our balcony. They had climbed down from the 5th floor. There are so many wooden boards nailed up here. Someone must be living here. Their voices carried over. But where are they? Someone sat down near the hole in the wall, and our hearts were in our throats. Maybe they went out looking for food and got bitten by zombies. Someone knocked on the wooden board and said, "Which department's female dorm is this? They can even do carpentry work. That's way too tough. Probably the civil engineering or architecture department. Girls' dorms really smell nice. It stinks everywhere outside, but their blankets still smell good. They're touching our stuff. Here I am at 20, still not knowing what it feels like to be with a woman. Am I really going to die a virgin? What a waste of my looks and figure." Someone wailed, "Can you talk a bit more auspiciously?" "During the new year," said the roguish, mischievous voice. "I wish I could. I just really want a girlfriend. Feng Yu, have you ever been in love?" "Of course I have." The roguish voice suddenly stopped. While we were still wondering, the poster was suddenly torn open, and a young man holding a knife crawled through the hole. We had been discovered. The moment he saw us, he started swinging his knife without any explanation. I went to grab his arm. My father had taught me that there's a numb spot on a person's arm. If you strike it hard enough, you can temporarily paralyze the limb. In my past life, I had injured someone that way and escaped. This time, I struck that acupoint on his arm again. I succeeded. The young man's knife fell to the ground, but my body was lifted into the air, then slammed heavily onto the floor. He threw me down with his other hand. At that moment, I clearly understood that in the face of absolute power, technique means nothing. The gap in strength between him and me was just too vast. My head was filled with a violent ringing. Amidst the dizziness, I saw Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia rushing toward me recklessly to save me, while Lin Qian and Wu Xia were also swinging their sticks. The remaining 3 boys also crawled over, and we started grappling with each other. I didn't know how many punches I took, but I made sure they didn't get off easy either. I bit down hard on one of their hands, sinking my teeth into his flesh. "No!" Su Mengyao screamed. she fell to her knees in front of the boy, spreading her arms to shield me, tears streaming down her face. "Take whatever you want, just don't kill her." Only then did I realize that the boy was already pressing a knife against my throat. The boy and his 3 companions all stopped, staring at us in shock. "You are human?" the guy asked. "Of course we are human." I released my bite, my mouth filled with the strong taste of blood. I had bitten him pretty hard. The guy put his knife away. "If you're human, why didn't you speak, and why were you biting like zombies?" Only then did we realize they had mistaken us for zombies, so they struck with their knives, and we thought they were here to rob and kill us, so we fought back. "Everyone's strings are drawn too tight. Pluck them and they'll snap." Our 2 groups sat far apart from each other. They gathered together talking, and from their conversation I learned that the guy with the roguish manner whom I had bitten was called Feng Yu, the one who was afraid that even dying would leave him a virgin was Luo Chuan, and the other 2, who had been secretly watching us, were Zhang Zhe and Fang Zheng. Feng Yu was their team leader, and the other 3 all listened to him. He was bandaging his wound while eyeing our supplies. Then his gaze landed on Su Menghan's belly. "There's actually a pregnant woman here." Su Menghan was now 8 months pregnant, and after all that commotion just now, her face had turned pale. "We can share our supplies with you, but don't even think about pulling any tricks," I said to them, enunciating every word. Feng Yu looked at us with disdain. "So what if we do pull something? What can you do about it?" "You're right, we can't do anything to you, but they can." I pointed to the zombies outside. "If we go all out and sever our blood vessels, when our blood comes gushing out, guess whether those zombies outside will go wild and charge over, and whether you'll be able to get away unscathed." Feng Yu's expression gradually grew serious. He could tell we weren't joking. We helped Su Menghan over to lie down and covered her with several layers of blankets, but her hands were still ice cold. I brought out all the books and lit them for warmth. Now that we'd been discovered, there was no need to hold back anymore. Luo Chuan and the other 2 craned their necks to peek over, while Feng Yu toyed with the knife in his hand. None of us on either side got much sleep that night. The next day, we casually ate some dry instant noodles, but Feng Yu and his group started cooking. They tore up books and split the table for firewood, then opened several of our vacuum-packed food packets and cooked them with rice, filling the air with a rich aroma. They devoured the meal ravenously, practically licking the pot clean by the end. Finally, they brought up 2 buckets of snow to melt and wash the stains off their bodies. The water in the basin quickly turned a dark red. It was the zombie blood they had wiped on themselves. "Aren't you afraid the virus might get in through your wounds?" I had bitten him yesterday, and he still had injuries on his hand. Feng Yu looked completely unfazed. "This young master here has a tough fate. In the face of the virus, all beings are equal. I think the reason he isn't afraid of getting infected is that the virus in the blood of a dead zombie dies along with the zombie itself, and the reason he knows this is probably because he's been through it before. So he's not worried. Everyone alive here hasn't simply survived by chance." After being cleaned up, they didn't look as terrifying anymore. Their youthful faces still held a trace of boyishness. When they sat there quietly, it gave people the illusion that they were well-behaved. Feng Yu and his group settled into the dorm next to ours. Aside from going to the common room to eat, we generally kept to ourselves and didn't bother each other. Every day, they would patrol the area, and whenever a zombie came close, they would deal with it swiftly and cleanly. I didn't understand why they wouldn't just take their supplies and leave, or at least move to another floor to stay, yet they insisted on staying with us. We recalled what Luo Chuan had said earlier about wanting a girlfriend. Could it be? But we couldn't afford to think about anything else at the moment. After what happened that day, Su Menghan was frightened. Her mental state grew worse, and she couldn't bring herself to eat. We were very worried but felt helpless. All we could do was take good care of her while preparing for the delivery. In case of premature birth, Luo Chuan would wander by from time to time, looking as if he had something to say but was holding back. "Just say what you want to say." I didn't like playing guessing games. Luo Chuan leaned halfway through a hole in the wall. "I'm not a doctor, but I get the feeling she needs one." "You don't say." We were also in desperate need of a doctor, but where could we find one now? Feng Yu pulled Luo Chuan aside. "Stop making trouble. Our fuel has run out, and we're left burning chairs and tables." As soon as Meng Han Su woke up, we fed her. She took 2 sips of porridge, then shook her head and said, I want an ice-cold Pepsi. She's not one to make unreasonable demands. Saying something like that at a time like this must mean she's not fully conscious. A wave of fear swept over us. Fear that something might happen to her. Fortunately, she regained consciousness after a moment and looked at us in confusion, asking, "Why are you crying?" Shui Mingming and the others turned their faces away. I replied, "It's too cold." From the freezing, she reached out and gently pushed us. "Then go get under the blankets on the bed." "I'm fine, don't worry." I nodded. "Okay, we'll go to bed in a bit." Su Menghan soon fell asleep again. The few of us dared not leave her side and kept checking her breathing, afraid that she might slip away from us. She was just too frail now. Shui Mingming and Zhong Jia searched the dormitory building thoroughly but found nothing. After a while, Feng Yu handed me a cup of water. "What's this?" I sniffed it and caught a hint of sweetness. Feng Yu said, "The sweetened water suggests she might be anemic or have low blood sugar." "How do you know that?" "Pepsi is very sweet. The fact that she wants to drink it means her body is sending signals that it needs sugar." We encountered this situation before during training, but this is just my inference. Give it a try. I woke up Su Menghan and fed her the sweetened water. After a few sips, she seemed to regain some energy and even had enough appetite to eat a little something before going back to sleep. "Thank you," I said to him. He pressed his lips together. "We should be the ones apologizing. If we hadn't been so impulsive and attacked you back then, maybe she wouldn't be like this." Feng Yu apologized. I had always been wary of and disliked them, but upon hearing his words, I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In this matter, it's hard to say who is right or wrong. Everyone just wanted to survive. Day 210 of the apocalypse. The clouds pressed down heavily again as snow began to fall from the sky. While cooking, Lin Shi suddenly said to us from the 6th-floor balcony, "Listen quickly. Doesn't that sound like a car?" We listened closely and indeed heard a faint noise, seeming to come from the agricultural university next door. Feng Yu and the others climbed to the rooftop to take a look. After a while, they came back and said there really were people over there, and they looked like a rescue team. We were overjoyed and immediately gathered books and wood to create smoke, hoping to catch the attention of those over there. But no matter what we did, the smoke wouldn't grow thick, and no one heard us shouting at the top of our lungs. Feng Yu and the others ran out and set a dormitory building on fire, hoping this would help us be discovered. But the heavy snow smothered the flames, and the fire ended up attracting zombies, so we had to call it off for the time being. "Luo Chuan, we'll go over and take a look first thing tomorrow morning." Zhang Zhe and Fang Zheng, "You two stay here and help." Feng Yu began to make arrangements, believing they needed to take the initiative. "All right," Luo Chuan agreed without the slightest hesitation. Since they were not afraid to take risks to find a way out, we were naturally generous as well. We gave them the motorcycle helmets and gloves we had bought earlier, hoping they would provide some protection. But then, in the middle of the night, something unexpected happened. Su Mengyao had abdominal pain and saw blood. She was going into premature labor. Zhong Jia went to boil hot water. Lin Shi and Wu Xia sealed the doors and windows tightly with tape. Feng Yu and Luo Chuan sprayed mosquito repellent and disinfectant everywhere. While Su Mingming and I were in charge of delivering the baby, we had never done anything like this before. We were still children ourselves, but we had no choice but to grit our teeth and push through. Su Menghan's face was pale with pain, but she bit down tightly on a towel without making a sound. She was afraid her cries would attract the zombies. I followed the rhythm quietly as shown in the video, and the blood spread across the sheets, more than we had expected. Worried that nearby zombies might come, Feng Yu and the others took knives and went downstairs to stand guard. I had thought they would run away. After all, if Su Menghan started hemorrhaging badly, this place would surely be surrounded by zombies. At dawn, the baby was finally born, a wrinkled little girl. Due to the mother's malnutrition, the infant was very light, and as I held her in my arms, she felt like she weighed only about 3 or 4 Jean. The little girl was indeed well behaved. The moment she came into the world, she started crying, saving us the step of having to spank her to make her cry. But after a couple of cries, she fell silent. It was probably too cold. I quickly carried her to the activity room and washed her clean with warm water. I had thought I would be all thumbs, but unexpectedly, I was very nimble. Maybe that's the potential people have. After dressing the little girl and wrapping her in a blanket, Feng Yu and the others gathered around to take a look. How can it be so ugly, like a little old lady? Fang Zheng muttered in confusion, immediately drawing warning glares from the rest of us. Fang Zheng quickly corrected himself. It's not ugly, quite good looking. The baby stirred a couple of times and then stopped moving, although there was still a heartbeat. After all, it had been born prematurely at that moment. Zhong Jia rushed over in a panic. Su Xiang, Meng Han, no matter how I call her, she won't wake up. I'll go over immediately. As expected, Su Menghan was unconscious. I thought it was caused by severe postpartum bleeding, but when I lifted the blanket to take a look, although there was some bleeding, it wasn't a massive hemorrhage. Something else had caused her to fall into a coma. I made a decision. We're heading over to the agricultural university now. If Feng Yu and the others went to call for help, there was no telling whether Su Menghan and the baby could hold on until they returned. Moreover, for some unknown reason, zombies kept gathering in this direction. Given that the amount of bleeding was masked by the smell of toilet water and disinfectant, it shouldn't have attracted zombies from that far away if they haven't returned by the time this place is surrounded by zombies. We won't be able to hold it. We might as well rush through now before the zombies fully gather. But how can Meng Han go out in this condition? Zhong Jia said worriedly. I'll carry Su Meng Han on my back. Fang Zheng, you take the baby. Luo Chuan and Zhang Zai, clear the way ahead. Feng Yu said as he took off his down jacket and used a bedsheet to strap Su Meng Han diagonally onto his back, minimizing the discomfort for her as she had just given birth. Ming Ming and Jia Jia, let's hang the blood-stained bedsheets outside the window to lure the zombies away. Quick, Lin Shi and Wu Xia, come help too. I tore the bloodied sheets into several pieces, handed them out, tied them to heavy objects, and hung them outside. The method worked, and the zombies were lured to the other side of the dormitory. Apply this. Feng Yu handed us several bottles filled with zombie blood. After quickly smearing some on ourselves, we left the dormitory and ran with all our might toward the agricultural university through the vast, heavy snow. The freezing wind cut into our skin like knives. Running so hard made our lungs feel as if they might explode, and a metallic taste of blood filled our throats. But hope lies ahead, and we must run. Finally, we see faint lights in the distance. There really are people up ahead, but the zombies are converging from all directions, and their blood can no longer disguise us. Luo Chuan, go get help, Feng Yu shouted. Okay. Luo Chuan stripped off his clothes as he ran until he was bare-chested, then vanished into the night like an arrow shot from a bow. Just as we were about to reach the entrance of our school, several zombies blocked our path. We swung the weapons in our hands and took them out, but after killing one wave, another followed. We fought relentlessly, blood darkening the white snow beneath us patch by patch. I had no idea how Su Menghan was doing. All I could see was Feng Yu, who was carrying her on his back, fighting desperately. Fang Zheng, with the child tied to his chest, protecting the baby with one hand while cleaving open zombie heads with the other, and Zhang Zai bravely forging ahead, lopping off one zombie head after another. Actually, they could have just run. They're sports majors, fully capable of making it to the rescue team on their own, even though we go to the same university. If it weren't for the apocalypse, those of us in architecture and them in physical education might never have crossed paths in our entire lives. We are strangers who met by chance, yet bound together in life and death. Then there's Lin Shi and Wu Xia. They trust us without reservation and have never uttered a single word of complaint. A zombie lunged at Su Menghan, but was knocked aside by another zombie, as if trying to save her. But how is that possible? How could a zombie save someone? Hurry into the guard room. There are no zombies inside, Xue Mingming shouted loudly. We immediately moved toward that direction. Once inside, we closed the doors and windows. Zhang Zi braced himself against the door, while Xue Mingming and the others guarded the windows. Su Menghan then lifted her eyes slightly, regaining a bit of consciousness. Menghan, how are you? I asked nervously. Su Menghan looked at me weakly and said, I'm fine. How's the child? The child is alive and warm, Fang Zheng said as he touched the little baby in his arms. Thank you, Su Menghan said to Fang Zheng, then continued, Su Xiang, I saw Cheng Yan. He's here to take me home. She suddenly regained consciousness. Could this be the calm before the storm? My heart ached as I said, don't talk nonsense. You'll be fine. The rescue team will be here soon. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but she no longer had the strength. With great effort, she reached out her hand to us, and we all held it tightly. In the summer when we were 18, we came from all corners of the world to room 412. Department of Architecture at Jiangda University. We went through military training together, attended classes together, and had fun together. Sometimes we had disagreements, but we always made up quickly. We once promised to be sisters for life, striving together in our youth, doing square dancing together when we grow old, and when the day comes to leave this world, we would look back on our lives with smiles and contentment. Su Menghan, you absolutely cannot die here. Pull yourself together, I said to her fiercely. Su Menghan did not answer. Through her daze, she looked at us, her eyes brimming with tears. Gunfire rang out as a heavy-duty vehicle crashed through, sending a swath of zombies flying. The door opened, and soldiers appeared before us. We were pulled one by one onto a vehicle, which tore through the zombies amidst furious tongues of fire as it sped toward the agricultural university. We were saved. As soon as the vehicle entered the university, medical staff immediately placed Su Menghan on a stretcher and rushed her into the emergency room. The 9 adults and 1 infant among us were placed in isolated quarantine. It's a miracle that none of you got infected, the person examining us exclaimed in amazement. None of us spoke, because Su Menghan's fate was still unknown. Suddenly, a baby's cry broke out. Fang Zheng fumbled to untie the child strapped to his chest. A female nurse took the child, but after just one look, she screamed and flung it away as if she had touched a venomous snake. I caught the child in a flash, and then I froze as well. A dark purple wound on a tiny baby's face. She had been hurt by a zombie. I was stunned, a wave of helplessness washing over me, choking me until I could barely breathe. She was so young. She had only just arrived in this world. How could that be? I've been holding her the whole time. If I'm not hurt, how could she be? Fang Zheng's eyes were filled with self-blame. The security guard walked over and aimed his gun at the little girl. They could not allow any infected person to remain in the camp. I blocked the muzzle with my hand, tears streaming down uncontrollably. She's still human right now. Can we wait until her human life ends and she becomes a zombie, before sending her to the other world? Feng Yu, Xue Mingming, and the others also gathered around to block the guns. The security personnel sighed and holstered their weapons. Minutes ticked by, one after another. The little child had no idea what was about to happen. She was crying. She was hungry. She hadn't eaten a single thing since she was born. Even 5 minutes later, she was still crying. We all stared at her in shock, because no one had ever remained uninfected more than 5 minutes after being exposed without turning into a zombie. But this baby didn't. She was still human, with no terrifying marks on her body. Her little face was red from crying, and her heart was still beating. Thump, thump, thump. I could feel it. She hasn't turned into a zombie. She's still alive. My voice trembled with excitement. The safety officer rushed outside, his voice also shaking. Get all the virologists to isolation room 3, right now. A large group of personnel in protective suits entered. We were taken to another room, and someone brought us hot water. So, is Little Star here to save the world? Zhong Jia murmured. Little Star was the nickname we had chosen for our child, since we didn't know the baby's gender. The name worked for both a boy or a girl, probably, which is why we, Xue Mingming hesitated, but I knew what she was trying to say. She meant, that's why we were reborn. If the little star can truly save the world, then the meaning of our rebirth is not to survive on our own, but to protect the arrival of this little angel. When the snow stopped, Su Menghan woke up. The doctor said she had fallen into a coma due to chronic anemia, exhaustion from childbirth, and potassium loss. Fortunately, she was brought to the hospital in time and pulled back from the brink. We entered the ward to see her. She was on an 4 drip, and though still very weak, she was already able to speak. Where's the child? She asked, just as we were trying to figure out how to explain. Zhong Jia smiled and said, she's saving the world. The answer was unexpected yet reasonable. Indeed, that tiny life was at that very moment shouldering the mission of saving the world. On the 3rd night, news came from the virus experts. An antigen capable of suppressing the virus had been discovered in Little Star's blood. That was why she hadn't turned into a zombie after being scratched. As for why Little Star has antigens, experts currently cannot explain it, preliminary speculation suggests it may be similar to the principle by which neonatal cord blood can rebuild the human hematopoietic and immune systems. Or perhaps it is a form of self-protection by the fetus after sensing the harsh external environment while in the womb. The exact answer will require further research. Little Star was conceived in the time before the apocalypse when her parents were in love, nurtured through the hardships of the apocalypse, and born amid the chaos of battle and escape, whether through theology or science. She is destined to be extraordinary. I walked outside and looked up at the sky. The once oppressive dark clouds had dispersed, revealing a bright, clear moon silently illuminating the world. The results are so good. Why are you crying? Feng Yu appeared by my side. I reached up to wipe my face and realized it was covered in tears. It's nothing, maybe I'm just too happy. Thank you all for this. How is Luo Chuan doing now? That day, Luo Chuan exhausted all his strength to bring reinforcements and ended up collapsing from sheer exhaustion. He's fine, he just needs a couple of days of rest. I nodded and, after a moment of silence, voiced the question that had been on my mind. Why didn't you leave after you got the supplies that day? Is it because? He looked at me with disdain. Stop right there, you have no idea what you looked like back then. Hair disheveled, faces pale as ghosts. That's why I mistook you for zombies. There's no way I had any improper thoughts about you. I shot back. You weren't any better. You were filthy and stank. With those fierce looks, you were the ones who looked like ghosts. He burst into laughter. After a while, he said in a low voice, the reason we didn't leave is that we were afraid if we did, we'd never see another living soul again. Only then did I realize that these four, who seemed so unconstrained, also longed for the warmth of human connection. On the 220th day of the apocalypse, the virologists who had been working day and night announced that the artificially developed antigen was complete and would begin clinical trials. We finally got to see Little Star. She had been in the lab all this time, so it had been very hard for us to visit her. The nurse carried the little girl out, and Su Menghan immediately reached out to take her. It was the first time she had seen her child since birth. She looked at the child tenderly, her gaze making the cold winter feel warm in that very moment. We also gathered around. Little Star had been well taken care of, having grown much larger than when she was first born. She looked healthy and rosy, and the wound once scratched by a zombie on her little face had faded to a very faint line. Fang Zheng kept his distance, afraid to come closer. He had always blamed himself for not protecting Little Star. Su Menghan carried Little Star over and placed her in his arms, saying considerately, hold her too, and see if she hasn't changed quite a bit from before. Fang Zheng nervously took the child into his arms and examined him carefully. He looks so much better than before. No, I mean, he wasn't ugly before either. We couldn't help but burst into laughter, and the gloom that had hung over us for days vanished in an instant. When spring arrived and flowers were in bloom, we took Little Star for a walk on the campus. Around us, many young people were farming. They were students from the agricultural university. When the apocalypse came, they had survived on the crops they normally grew. The government chose this place as a safe zone not only because it could accommodate a large number of rescue workers but also because it had some capacity for production. We all signed up to join them, doing our part to help restore daily life and production. Outside the school fence, quite a few zombies were loitering. The current antigen can only protect the living from infection. There is still a long way to go to eliminate the virus. Let's go somewhere else. There are too many zombies here, I said to Su Menghan, but Su Menghan walked toward the fence with a strange expression on her face. We rushed after her in fright to stop her, only to hear her call out to one of the zombies, Cheng Yan. We looked at the zombie in disbelief. It was a young man, his body already mutilated, his original appearance hardly recognizable, yet when we looked closely, it really was Cheng Yan. On that snowy night when we fled to the agricultural university, a zombie crashed into another zombie that almost hurt Su Menghan. I thought it was a coincidence. Back then, Su Menghan said she saw Cheng Yan, and we thought it was her imagination. Now it seems it was neither a coincidence nor imagination. It was that bright and sunny boy, who had crossed mountains and rivers to keep his promise and return, but fate played a cruel trick, forcing him to stop forever just a stone's throw away from the one he loved. Su Menghan cried uncontrollably, and Little Star seemed to feel her mother's sorrow and her father's eternal separation, crying loudly as well. Cheng Yan, pushed aside by the zombies drawn by the noise, staggered away. When the security personnel arrived and heard what had happened, they sent someone to bring Cheng Yan back to the lab. After studying him, they told us it was all just a coincidence. Cheng Yan had no life, no consciousness, and no miracle. Su Menghan took Cheng Yan's ashes back home. On his spirit tablet was not his name, but the words, "I love this world, but I love you even more." This is what Cheng Yan said when he confessed his feelings to Su Menghan. The once-spirited young man now lies in a small casket. We pray that he may have a next life. We pray that in that world, he successfully makes it to the side of the one he loves, and that they live happily together as a family. After the sorrow passes, we begin life anew. What is lost, but what lies ahead can still be pursued. Spring turns to autumn, autumn to spring. The seasons change, the years roll by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 years have passed. The 4 of us girls are already architects, renovating the city under the guidance of our seniors. Lin Qian and Wu Xia have taken to farming with great success, transforming from landscape architecture students into top talents in agronomy. Feng Yu and Luo Chuan joined the military in their very first year, following the main forces to establish one safe zone after another and protect wave after wave of survivors. Little Star has grown up healthy and become the darling of our safe zone. She can be mischievous at times, often chased all around the yard by Su Menghan, who said she was well behaved. "She's just a little rascal," Su Menghan, exhausted and sweaty, then added with a smile, "just like her father." In the 5th year, the zombie crisis finally came to an end, and I returned to my hometown. When I pushed open the door, the house was already covered in dust. My parents were no longer there. On the dining table, a cup weighed down an envelope with, "For Su Xiang," written on it. I opened the long yellowed letter, and inside was my father's handwriting. "Xiang, if you're reading this letter, it means we didn't make it to you. Perhaps by now, life and death have already separated us. But Mom and Dad want you to know, we went out looking for you. We never gave up on you. Mom and Dad love you." The date is July 6th, the 3rd day after the apocalypse began. Although they didn't know whether I would ever get to read this letter in the end, they still hoped that I would survive. Clutching the letter, I fell to my knees in tears, my heart torn with agonizing pain. Even after being reborn into this life, in the end I still never got to reunite with them. Before leaving, I also left behind a letter with my address, and took a family photo with me. Maybe one day in the future, we'll run into each other at some street corner. They'll be walking hand in hand, their temples already gray, while I'll have grown into someone they no longer need to worry about. By the time they returned to the safe zone, both Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia had gotten boyfriends. Feng Yu and his team also came back. Over the past 5 years, they had shed all traces of youthful boyishness. Now they stood tall and resolute, each capable of holding their own. Now that everything had stabilized, they no longer needed to rush from place to place. This time, they had returned for a long-term posting. As soon as Fang Zheng returned, he helped Su Menghan take care of Little Star. Little Star was also very clingy with him, following him around like a little shadow. Even when someone joked that Uncle Fang Zheng once called her an ugly baby, she just giggled and didn't get upset. One day, Su Menghan told us that Fang Zheng had proposed to her. "So did you say yes?" we asked her. She nodded. I said, "Yes, Little Star really likes him. She's called him Dad several times, and over these 5 years, he's taken good care of us and given a lot. So do you like him?" Instead of answering directly, she looked at a dead tree outside the window and said, "We're both adults now. Of those who survived the disaster, half have already moved on from the nightmare, while the other half remain forever buried in the past." In early May, Su Menghan and Fang Zheng held a simple wedding, with Little Star as their flower girl. We could see that Fang Zheng never took his eyes off Su Menghan and Little Star for even a moment. We knew that in this marriage, he came with love. Perhaps even withered wood can bloom again in spring. Within such love, we drank quite a bit at the wedding and didn't head back until 10 at night. Xue Mingming and Zhong Jia were taken home by their boyfriends. Watching their sweet silhouettes, my heart felt warm too. On the way back to the dorm, someone caught up from behind. It was Feng Yu. Luo Chuan and Zhang Zhe were making exaggerated faces at me before darting off in a flash. "You're drunk. Let me walk you back." Feng Yu grabbed hold of me as I stumbled along. "I'm fine. You think one little bottle of liquor can keep me from getting home? I pushed his hand away. I was perfectly sober. He let out a laugh and stayed by my side. Over the past 5 years, we'd always kept in touch. Every time he returned to the base, we'd have a meal together. We had clearly become good friends. What are you laughing at? I asked him. He walked in front of me and blocked my way. Su Xiang, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer me seriously. I nodded. This guy is really strange. I've always been serious when talking to him. 5 years ago, when I almost hurt you, did you ever hate me or dislike me? His face was solemn, and he was indeed asking very seriously. Yes, I admitted, not just him. I had once disliked all four of them, but on the day you carried Su Menghan on your back, I stopped disliking you entirely. He nodded, a hint of a smile in his eyes. Since you no longer dislike me, let's not just be friends. How about becoming a couple? I was frozen to the spot. The May breeze brushed against my cheeks, and I could feel them burning hot. It's okay if you don't agree today. I'll come back and ask again tomorrow. That roguish charm of his was back, just like when we first met 5 years ago. The streetlight slanted down from above his head, casting a warm glow across his face. I stood there, dazed, watching the light as memories of the past 5 years flickered through that warm glow like a revolving lantern. Then I heard myself say, no need to wait until tomorrow, I can give you my answer right now. He held me gently, and our shadows merged under the moonlight. We were two people who were never meant to meet, yet at that moment, we were in each other's arms. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that the present moment is what matters most. May all that is good and hoped for arrive as promised, and may everything in this world come at just the right time. What are your thoughts after hearing this story? Feel free to share them in the comments. We look forward to hearing from you.